All right, welcome to episode 11 of Two Pastors and a Plant. We haven't introduced ourselves in a while. I'll just go ahead and do that. I don't know if we've really ever. My name's Drew Narmour.
You told me not to the first episode.
And this is JD Shaw, and we're glad to be talking, finishing up our series on heaven. We've talked about what we'll inhabit in heaven, a little bit about our bodies and the environment, and then what our relationships are going to be like in heaven. So if you missed those, go check them out. We had a lot of fun filming those. This week we're going to finish up on work. And just that thought of work in heaven might even just surprise some people, because it isn't, obviously it's not, very few of these things we're talking about is covered extensively. Mm-hmm. But the passage that I think of when I think of this is Genesis 1 and 2, Eden. God gives Adam and Eve in Eden work. Mm-hmm. And he says, work and tend to the garden. And even gives them work to be fruitful and multiply, which is a great job. And, there's nothing in Scripture, and I'm sure you're going to bring another passage that says that we won't be doing that very thing in the glorified new heaven and new earth. So we will have our work. What will it be like?
Well, and like so many of the other things we've talked about when it comes to heaven, human language really limits us. I mean, there's just so much we can't comprehend. But it does seem to me that there is activity. There's hints and indications in the Scriptures that there's activity, maybe even economic activity, and there's purpose behind activity in the new heavens and new earth. So in Isaiah 60, this is talking about the glory of Zion. We read, not only will the nation stream into Zion, which in the context of Isaiah, that's talking about the perfected Jerusalem, the Jerusalem of the new heavens and new earth. But, the ships of Tarshish are bringing in silver and gold to Zion. The glory of Lebanon's coming with their pine, their fir, and cypress to adorn the sanctuary. Flocks are being gathered to you from Kedar, gold and incense from Sheba. Herds of camels will cover your land from Midian and Ephah. So it looks like the wealth of the nations are streaming into Zion. That could just be a reflection of the glory that is due God's presence on earth coming to him. But it could also be, somebody's doing this. It could also be evidence of purpose and economic activity. And then in Micah, another place I think, there's a lot of the day of the Lord stuff in the minor prophets. But in the book of Micah chapter 4, we read that, all the nations, this is verse 2, many nations will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths. God will judge between many peoples and will settle disputes for strong nations far and wide." So it seems like different nations still exist, but they're submitting to the authority of God who reigns in Jerusalem, in Zion. And then one last thing is just, and I've heard John Piper talk about this. This is Luke 19, the parable of the minas, the 10 minas. Clearly there it's talking about what's going to happen when Jesus returns, so after the end of the age. And the reward there is, one servant was given 5 minas. He earned 5 more with them. He was given 10, I think, and earned 10 more. He was given 1 mina and he earned 10 more. And the master says, "Well done, my good servant, because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities." But those are hints and indications. It does seem to me that there has to be some kind of purpose to what's going on in the universe, especially because of what Adam did in the garden. So yes, there will be work.
But we know it won't be hard, which is
work without frustration.
And that is, I love my job, but that is hard to think about. Work that is not work that we really enjoy with every part of our being, and we sort of see how it benefits the rest of society, and we glory in it, and the fact that there can be street sweepers in every occupation, just loving what they're doing and it not being hard is a great thing to think about.
And, what I think about are animals and just how perfectly content they are to do what they've been bred to do. So I'm sure I could give you a more eloquent agricultural illustration if I'd been around flocks of sheep or something and been around sheepdogs, cutting sheep and, just glorying in how they've been bred to do something. But I've got a dog who apparently has been bred, a Jack Russell Terrier, who has been bred to fetch balls. And she is so absolutely focused on fetching the tennis balls when we throw them. I mean, she will wear you out. She wants so badly to do this. And I think there's an analogy there for just how we will glory in what God gives us to do in the new heavens and new earth because, again, we're not infected with sin any longer.
My dog has been bred to eat and sleep. And so, but
it's good work if you can get it.
Yeah. You've mentioned in sermons, and I've heard you say this before, physicians, you're going to be out of a job in heaven.
Right.
You're not saying that we're all going to have the same jobs. You're going to be out of the job.
I'm out of a job in heaven.
Yeah,
praise God.
We're not all going to have the same jobs. Is there any indication of okay, so what I hear you kind of saying is the way you were made in God's image now may be something that we find enjoyment in the future. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to all be in the widget factory, screwing the widget onto the widget, and in the exact same way. I think I would guess that because we're distinct human beings on earth, we'll be distinct, glorified human beings in the new heavens and new earth. I don't get much beyond a purpose, though. I think we will have a purpose. We will enjoy that purpose. But as far as particulars as to what that purpose will be for me or anybody else is complete guesswork. I wouldn't even presume to guess for myself, let alone anybody else.
Again, I mean, as I've been thinking about this recently, it's been a paradigm shift of what heaven's going to be like. So a lot of this is fun to think about, fun to speculate about. So I know I'm doing a lot of speculation, but that's what this show's for. So
this show is for whatever we want it to be.
Yeah,
for.
Exactly. Going back to this idea of governments and economic systems, I mean, that is the idea that we're not going to be one theocracy. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, that's Revelation as well. There'll be different tribes, peoples, tongues, nations, none in rebellion against one another, none in rebellion against God, rather, and none fighting one another, because I didn't read the very next verse in Micah 4, but Micah 4, verse 3 says, "He will judge between many peoples and will settle disputes for strong nations far and wide. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Every man will sit under his own vine and under his own fig tree." It seems like we will be, have our distinct ethnicities in heaven, which is one reason why it is to the glory of the church when it is ethnically diverse, when the church is ethnically diverse. But as far as what those nations will be doing, that's where, I just kind of have no clue what to tell you.
We won't have currency. I mean, it sounds like we will have currency, some sort of system that's not like today, but we won't be jealous, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. And that is another great thing to think about. We won't be jealous of one another's work. And
Jonathan Edwards has a great illustration on that. I'm sure I've told you that before, but he says that everybody in heaven will be like a vessel or a container set on a sea of happiness. And each container will be of a different size, but each container will be full of holy joy. And so he speculates that our works on earth, our holiness on earth, will relate to the size of our vessel in heaven, yet everybody will be completely full of happiness, so there will be no room for jealousy or discord. So I may be a thimble and you may be a swimming pool, but there'll be just no space in me for jealousy to arise. Mm-hmm. We'll all be perfectly happy in heaven. Again, that still leaves a lot of questions unanswered, but that's the only thing that's really made sense to me when I can try to conceive of anything approaching J.D. Shaw being in heaven and not being jealous. Just knowing how envious and jealous I can get all the time now.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is just because of how.
Well, it's hard for us to imagine what it's like to be a sinless person.
Exactly.
Because we've never known it, and so we can't imagine something we've never known.
Yeah.
But that made sense to me.
Last question. This isn't from the plant. This is from me.
Good.
Can I play baseball in heaven? Can I be like, will they be professional baseball teams?
Field of Dreams, dude.
That's a good point. That's a great point.
I don't know. I mean,
that would be really.
I've heard people say things like, he's up in his favorite fishing hole in heaven. And I feel like the same thing with baseball. I don't know. I think
to get let go of my silly desires is what you're saying.
I think I'm not going to comment. That's what I think.
Okay, there we go. Well, that is all we have on heaven. And like always,
so now you're an expert.
Now you're an expert, but we know we can't address every question on this topic. Probably you felt like wish you would ask this question. If that's the case, let us know, and maybe it will be enough questions to warrant another series down the line in the future.
We'd love to get some of your questions.
We'd love to get some of your questions.
It would make Drew's job easier. It'd be fun. Yeah.
It would definitely be fun to get questions from everybody. Jared, do you have any questions? Jared doesn't. Jared never has any questions.
I do, but
okay. Thanks for joining us, episode 11. We'll be back next week with a different topic, maybe a series. We're not sure yet, but we'll see you there.